big welcome to this special episode of our Language Teaching Takeoff webinar series, Transforming Language Education with Ethical AI, a panel discussion. Indeed, today we're going to discuss how ethical AI is transforming language education. And also we can explore how tools like the Teachermatic Language Teaching Edition empower teachers to save time, foster creativity, and also retain the human touch while integrating AI into the classroom. I'm Jada. I was a language educator and I'm now part of the Avalon team. I'm your host today, and I'm very happy to introduce you to our expert panel of speakers, starting off with Pilar from Argentina. She's a teacher and ELT content creator. Nik Peachey, educator, author, and a tech consultant, who's been the face of this webinar series since we started. Jo Szoke, teacher trainer, educational consultant, and lecturer. And finally, Johnstone, VP partnership at Avalon. And before we begin with the discussion, just a few practical notes. You're welcome to submit your question using the chat that you can find here on Zoom, and we'll aim to address as many questions as possible towards the end of the session. Also note that the webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be shared via email next week after the event. And thank you once again for joining us today. And with that, let's just get started straight into discussion. And the first question is for Nik. Nik, from your work with teachers, where do you see the potential for AI to help with some of the challenges that teachers face?
I think it's something that you mentioned in your introduction, actually, is that, I think one of the biggest challenges teachers face, apart from money, of course, is time. And, having the time to do all the things that they need to do, marking students' work, creating lessons, developing materials, and I think it has huge potential there to help with time, and particularly with planning lessons and coming up with materials that are quite sort of personalised and that are developed to the needs of the students. I think having a course book is great, but a lot of course books are very generic. They've been produced for, a global audience or something like that. And when you get the course book into your classroom and you start looking at it and thinking about how well it fits with your students, it isn't always ideal. And I think, things like AI can help teachers adapt those materials, make them more interesting for their students, help them sort of develop materials around those same themes. And that's one of the things about Teachermatic that's really nice, is that it's, been pre-programmed to get kind of common European framework of reference levels right, which, is always a challenge if you're prompting yourself. And I think things like Teachermatic as well, if you don't know how to prompt and you find that whole process very challenging, things like Teachermatic can really help, because, it's so simple to use. It's, you just select the level that you want and put in a few keywords and it's generating things for you, rather than you having to sort of do a lot of trial and error with, working out what's the best way to do your prompt engineering. So I think those sort of things can really help save time and help teachers to sort of personalise materials, not just for level, but really for the interests and, and to the kind of neurodiversity of their students as well, which is a nice thing that I've seen Teachermatic has added recently, that you can kind of select the neurodiversity that your students have, and it will give you some tips on how to sort of adapt to that. And all of that is great kind of time saving, I think, and that's where AI can really help, I think.
For sure, yes. And we all know teachers have a lot to deal with. So if AI can help in leasing this, that would be definitely very helpful. Thank you very much, Nik. And now, Jo, considering your teacher training and teaching experience, what do you think are the specific advantages of an AI toolset for language educators?
Thank you. Thank you, Jada. Well, actually, as Nik said just now, I would say speed. Yeah, definitely. So I completely agree that speeding things up and also personalizing your teaching can be the best part of using AI. Also, creating activities for topics or target audiences that are not usually covered by published materials. Sometimes for example, that's also a thing nowadays that I've seen this on social media, that language education is, or at least the private language education sector is becoming a little bit more niche. Or it opens to more like niche markets. For that, you need materials, and AI could easily generate things for those particular needs. So I think, yeah, personalization and speed.
For sure, yes. And it can do so much in this sense. Thank you for sharing this. So we talked about AI toolsets. Well, in general, Nik mentioned already Teachermatic, but let's go deeper into Teachermatic. And this is a question for you, Pilar. Considering your experience as a teacher, have you used it in your lessons so far? And if so, can you share an examples of an activity or resource that it helped you create?
Only one because there are many. Yeah, so yeah, I'm going to focus on maybe generators that are different, specials. For example, there's a have you done your homework generator. And I thought that one was great because, sometimes we walk into the classroom and as teachers we're like, have you done your homework? Did you do your homework? Did you? Yeah. And I don't want to sound like a police officer. And this is a very nice activity. We can use it however we want. I use it as a warm-up. And it's a great way for me to see not just if students were able to do their homework, but also if they were actually able to understand maybe, I don't know, a text they had to read, or, that's my favorite part. And it also helps me get ready for that lesson because our students are working on that activity. I can start thinking about how I'm going to approach that lesson. So were they able to understand everything? Okay, so we're going to move on, or we're going to check that activity. No, maybe we have to do something a bit different. Maybe we have to go back. Maybe we have to, I don't know, do something together before. So that helps me see how I'm going to approach that lesson that day. And then another one that I really like, and it's also connected to what Nik said about course books. Sometimes I don't know, there's a text and we have to read it, and maybe students are not into that topic, and that's okay, that's valid. So maybe instead of reading that text and answering some questions on page 9, I tell my students, okay, so we're going to read this text, we're going to summarize it, and now we're going to use this tool, Ask an Expert, one of my favorite generators on Teachmatic. And now we're not reading for the sake of reading, we're reading because we want to know if this information is accurate. If it's, I don't know, are these facts, or did someone, I don't know, write this like just because? Let's check. And it's a different way to approach reading. And students pay attention to all these details because they're not reading for the sake of reading. They have a very clear mission. So I think those are some generators that I absolutely loved, and so did my students.
Amazing. And it's so great to hear that. I mean, it's true, you can use Teachermatic to do like a lesson planning, but you can also use these other generators that are maybe less known, but they are still super useful. So thank you very
Exactly.
much for sharing your experiences with it. Now, we just focus on AI and how AI can support language educators, but naturally, teachers and schools have valid concerns about ensuring its safe and appropriate use. Ian, this is a question for you. What role should educational technology companies play in promoting and delivering a more ethical approach to AI in language education?
Yeah, wow, there's a big topic. I'm not going to try and answer it all in one go. Hopefully, a lot of this will come out during the course of our discussion. But I think a principal consideration for technology companies with any new technology is making sure that the technology doesn't start to lead, that what is exciting and novel doesn't start to lead educational practice. What we've got to try to do, therefore, is make sure it's educator-led. Teachermatic had an advantage, which was that it was set up by 4 educators. for lecturers. So they built it around their specific needs, and that's one of the reasons it's done so well in the sectors it's dominating in. But we've got to make sure that that continues. And in particular, in language teaching, it's essential that we listen to educators. So one of the things I think technology companies need to do is lots of piloting. Piloting is important both for ed tech companies, but also for institutions. It's really important that there's lots of trial that goes into a new technology like this, and we learn from trialing it in different ways. So we worked with people like Nile and International House and British Council and Equals members and so on to help hone Teachermatic. And then once you've learned as a ed tech provider, you've got to then feed back what you've learned. So another thing that we try to do is to share our knowledge through courses. So we've developed a Getting Started with Teachermatic course, which is an interactive course that teachers can do and end up certified in the use of the technology, which I think is important. I think teachers are going to want to know that they have a certain level of skill in the use of AI. It's not enough to just, given all the training that teachers do in everything that they do in the classroom, we need to provide the same for AI. So feeding back what we've learned in that way, and also to the institutions themselves. So one of the things that we've done is develop a rollout strategy for institutions for AI, which is based on the ADKA framework, which is a change management framework to help institutions digest this major new technology shift and turn it into something that is truly for their organization and not something that is jarring to the way that they do things. So those are some key considerations. I think there's a lot more in terms of ethical deployment of AI, but I can perhaps come back to that later on. I don't want to dominate at this stage.
Thank you, Ian.
Okay.
That's very useful. And thank you also for mentioning these great two resources that we have available on the Teachermatic website. And I just dropped the link in the chat just in case anybody wants to have a look. As Ian mentioned, we have this free course, Getting Started with Teachermatic. So course is a certified course. And then we have the rollout strategy guide that is useful for institutions. So thanks for that. Great. So then moving on, Jo, coming back to you, would you say that AI offers more benefits for classroom use or for planning and admin tasks?
Well, that's a very good question, actually, because it depends on how much you have to do from either side. I would say admin, definitely. It could be like AI can help a lot with, and that's why I actually love AI, because it can sometimes, I mean, it can generate language, and many times we need to do admin work that's not necessarily the most exciting piece of work. We just need to generate lots of language, and AI can definitely help with that. It can also help with reports and writing, generating lesson plans. But if you don't really need to do that, you're not required to do any of that, then it doesn't really make much of a difference. Also, I would definitely point it out that if you use AI to write reports, end of year or end of term reports for your students, it's important to consider what sort of data you put into these generators, like be careful what sort of student data you put in. So what I personally do, because I have already used AI to help me with writing reports, is that I just ask for panel sentences, and then I just use bits and pieces, and I fill it up with my own knowledge. So actually, I don't want to share all that data but I'm thinking about third-party tools such as ChatGPT and the others. I don't want to put student data there. I just use the panel sentences that might be better phrased than what I'm I have in mind or what I'm capable of. So that's definitely the admin use. However, I love also the in-classroom use. I try to always come up with new ideas, how we could integrate it into our classroom use so that we can show our students how this can be done, how they can use it critically, ethically, responsibly. So using it together and integrating it into our lessons could be a great idea. So I try to come up with more and more activity ideas for that. If we have time, I can share some ideas, but I don't want to use too much time for this. But I definitely try to go for the in-classroom use a lot so that we can use that time to help our students use it well.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very useful and helpful to know. And yes, it's true. I think it's connected with the fact that AI can support teachers, but also like other roles within a language institution. And Ian, I think you want to connect to what Joanna just mentioned,
Yeah, I
right?
was just going to it's all great points, Joanna, and also I just wanted to say that technology companies should help with some of these things. So, for instance, not uploading personal data. There's things that it's important are done in the interface of tool sets that prompt teachers, if you like. Prompt is a loaded word in this context, but tell teachers not to do certain things in the tool. That's at a lower level of technology, and at a higher level, we can build in tools like Microsoft Azure that prevent us from uploading personal data. So there's different things that technology companies need to consider when doing this, and so that the load isn't all on teachers to remember and educate themselves when using AI.
Thank you, Ian. Yes, you made a valid point for sure. It's not a one-way situation in this case. Okay, great. So then just moving on, Nik, what advice would you give to teachers who are just starting to experiment with AI in their daily practice?
I think if you're just getting started, I think the first thing is great. You've made the biggest step. You've started, and I think that's the most important thing for a lot of teachers is, to take that first step and let your curiosity lead you. I think another important thing is, okay, if you're not sure where to begin, you want to start, you're not sure where to begin, look for your own pain points, look for the things in your work that you're finding either difficult or you really don't like doing. Maybe it's lesson planning, maybe it's writing reports, maybe it's marking assignments, but choose one of those things, just focus on one of them and start looking at and researching how AI can help you. And maybe one of the first steps to that is, actually have a conversation with the AI about it. You can go to ChatGPT or DeepSeek or something like that, say, look, I'm a teacher, I'm teaching English, I really struggle with this. What can you do to help me? And it will, and get involved in that conversation with the AI, and it will tell you how it can help you. So I mean, I think that's one thing is, focus on the pain points, one area that you'd really like to improve. The other thing is, try and join in, be parts of different communities, lots of online communities on Facebook and things like that, where people are sharing ideas and getting ideas off of other people. Do a course. There's the free Teachermatic course, something like that can really help you. But, I think the most important thing is, take that first step, overcome the fear of the first step and get engaged with it. And I mean, I know lots of people talk about embracing technology. I've heard this a lot, embracing technology. It's not a phrase that I particularly like. I think, treat it more like a first date. Start by holding hands with technology and collaborating with it a bit and seeing what you can get out of it before you start embracing it. But, there are lots of things. And if you really look for what your pain points are, then it can help you, I think.
For sure, yes. And Jo,
Can I just add one little thing? The good thing I think in AI chatbots is that these are like based on large language models, right? So we can have natural human conversation with them, and that's why it's it we've tend to think of these as, yeah, as Nik said, we need to embrace technology. But since we can talk to them as if we were talking to people, we can just simply ask, so what can you help me with? Like, what can you do? What is this? Who are you? And it will just engage in a conversation that can just flow naturally. And we don't need to be afraid of asking questions.
Yes, I agree. Perfect. Thank you, Nik, as well for your answer. To the next question, Ian, actually, if I can come back to you on what we were talking about regarding ethics, could you share a few examples of how Avalon makes sure AI remains ethical, transparent, and aligned with teachers' real needs?
Yeah, thanks, Joanna. I was just going to come back on this this last point about chatting with AI, and I can see that there's a question from Luke about this. Hello, Luke. In the chat. I think it's important that we don't lose in an AI tool set. So when you're building on ChatGPT or one of the large language models, you don't lose the power of that chat, that to and fro. And so in fact, in Teachermatic, we've built in a chat generator so you can chat with Teachermatic. The advantage of doing it that way rather than directly with ChatGPT is that the filters that I was talking about earlier can be placed on the chat so that nothing inappropriate is coming back inappropriate to an educational context. No data is shared and so on. So coming back to that point, in terms of ethics, firstly, there are tools we can build into the technology that prevent inappropriate content being shared. And inappropriate, most teachers are not going to share inappropriate content or receive inappropriate content from the AI, but they may inadvertently share personal data and so on. So we can build in that layer. I think there's an onus on us to continually research because there's so much in terms of national and international frameworks of best practice. It's impossible for institutions to keep across all of this. A responsible edtech provider should be across all of those frameworks. So, we didn't used to have a lab, but when AI came along, we set up a lab because there's just so much happening. Keeping across just what the EU is doing in AI is a major task, but we've also got national frameworks. The UK is leading the way in some of this as well. In the US, we have to be across it. So we have actually academics, two professors, Professor John Traxler, Professor Rose Luckin, who are helping us with just the thinking about where all of this is headed. There's a question about, I'm sure a lot of people listening would be concerned about the environmental impact of AI. That's another area where we need to keep across best practice and make sure that we're doing everything we can to minimize impact. It's very difficult because the models are shifting all the time. So it's a continuous process. And no one can tell you they're getting it all right because it is moving that fast. But what we can do is we can consider every time we deploy a new feature, like a good example came up recently, generation of images in Teachermatic. Do we always have to generate the image, or can we use stock images as a first response and then only use AI to amend or to add to stock image output, so that the number of generations is minimized? So there's lots of things that we can do in that area. As well, we can offset and make sure that we are doing all the things we should be doing to offset. But even that is a challenge with AI because of the use of AI is shifting so quickly that while 1 month we can say, okay, we've successfully offset, in the next month it can change because the model changes. So when Teachermatic was first built, it was on GPT-2. We've recently moved to GPT-5, and when you move to GPT-5, there is a different use of AI. So there's an onus on us to keep across the shifting picture of AI and make sure we're using the best thought and practice available. I hope that's a full enough response there.
Perfect response, very comprehensive. Thank you. And yeah, it's true. It's really important to have some safeguards in place to ensure there is this ethical usage of AI. And it's great to hear that these are available. But of course, we also need to make sure that the content created through AI really connects with our learners. So, Pilar, how do you ensure AI-generated materials still feel authentic and personal to them?
All right, so with Teachermatic, there are lots of things that we can do. Starting with the fact that there are lots of generators, we can pick the ones that are going to provide us with the output, activities, texts, materials, resources our students need. There's one generator that I really like, inspiration. I loved it because nowadays there are so many generators, so many tools that we can use that sometimes we don't even know where to start. And inspiration is the generator that helps us or provides us with suggestions of things that we can do with our students and how we can engage them. And I thought that was great because we need something like that. We have lots of tools, but okay, what can I do with this group of students? So I thought that was great. Then because there are so many generators and creating resources with Teachermatic takes very little time, something that we can do is create different resources for different students. And students feel special. They know that we listen to them, we know who they are, we know what they need. So I know you are into this. Here you go, here's an activity for you. I know that you need to work on that. Here you go, here's another activity. And what I like about that is that then, the moment we check an activity or the moment we discuss something, is more interesting because, the topic is the very same one, but it's like, okay, so I read a text, but you guys watched a YouTube video. So what was it about? Let's talk about that. So it's not like students go, yes, I read this text and I know the answer is A. No, I want to know what those guys were doing. So that's something that I love. We always have the option, there's a learner profile section where we can describe our students as well. And I've used it quite a lot, I have to say. And the cool thing is that every time you use it, it's going to, the platform, Teachermatic, is going to give you different activities, even if you're covering the very same topic. For example, I used to work at a bilingual school and we had to cover the topic tectonic plates. And, for many students, it was very interesting, and that's okay. So I said, okay, so I have to work with a group of very energetic students. What can I do? And one of the activities he provided me with was like, okay, so clear the room. And students are going to pretend to be different tectonic plates, and they have to recreate those movements. And I thought, okay, that's really cool. But that was third A. Then I had to work with third B. And I say, so this is a very calm group, shy students. I don't know if I can do that. And the activities were completely different. It provided me, like the lesson plan included sections where students had to share ideas or answers with a classmate just to make sure they had some time to practice, to get ready before sharing their answers or their ideas with the rest of the group. So I thought, that's great, because that's something this group needs. So that was amazing, seeing how everything was very, how I could personalize everything for my students. And then there's another generator that I really like, adapt your content. Again, working at this bilingual school, every now and then we received students who came from other schools that were not bilingual, and maybe they didn't feel very comfortable with the level, right? So something that I could do was adapt the materials I was going to be using that day. So we were all able to cover the very same topics, but everyone was able to read or work at a level that was right for them, that made them feel comfortable. And then we always had a moment where we were able to discuss our ideas or, the answers and everything, but everyone had something they felt comfortable with. It's not like, oh, this is a bit challenging for me. I won't participate today, maybe tomorrow. No, no, no. Everyone had something they feel comfortable with. And I think that's great. And again, thanks to Teachermatic, it took me like 30 seconds, 1 minute. So yeah, that was great.
Thank you, Pilar. It's great to see all of these examples and like what you can do with the different tools available and how your students react as well. It's really important to consider who you have in front of you before you actually design the lessons, right?
Yeah.
So thank you very much for sharing that. It's great. Now, Jo, we've seen how AI can help teachers create reliable and contextualized content for their lessons, but can it also be used for assessment, both summative and formative?
Yes, I love talking about assessment.
Yes, I know you do.
So first of all, we need to just very quickly and briefly clarify these terms just in case. So summative is when we do some kind of a summary. So at the end of a unit, at the end of a term or year, we want to find out how much our students have learned and how much they have progressed. But at a certain point in time, so usually that's like tests, progress tests with some kind of a grade or mark or score. And then formative assessment is this continuous type of assessment during which we look at the process, how they are developing, giving them feedback. They can respond to feedback. They can always draft, redraft, and submit versions of the task. So with that in mind, I would say, yeah, we can use AI in both of these cases. However, we need to be not like careful, but aware of what we're doing and how we use these AI tools. So in summative assessment, it's definitely there. So there are already lots of quiz making tools and basically, yes. So quiz making tools that use AI based scoring. Now, the way that works is, well, it's kind of automated scoring, but then AI-based scoring is used when, for example, they write a shorter piece of text or longer piece of text, but we set the criteria and then AI is used to give feedback on that piece of writing. Now, what we need to be careful with is that, well, I haven't tried the Teachermatic generator yet, although I did try it once and it was actually pretty good. But I remember trying ChatGPT a long time ago. And as Ian said, these models change super fast and there's always something new coming out. The long time ago, I think was a year ago, perhaps, we tried it. We wanted to check whether it can find mistakes in an essay, and we wanted to get a number, like how many mistakes are in this essay. Once we got 5, another time, like it's not like another time. Immediately when we checked it again, we got 10 and then 1. It was always a different number, so it was completely unreliable. Now, I'm not sure how is it now, but my personal view is that I would rely on automated scoring. I would listen to AI's feedback on writing, but I want to be the one who gives the final score on that piece of writing. So I'm curious about what it says. Okay. And I'm just going to double check just in case. I think, rely on automated scoring because that's how the quiz was set up. But in terms of subjective scoring, it's a good starting point, but I'm not going to rely on it now, but it's also just me. And informative assessment, I think it can be a great thing because it can give feedback, it can give action points. So I tested that as well, like what kind of action points can you give this student or that student? And just as Pilar said, if we give the learner profile, then it can give tailored action points and suggestions for improvement. That is awesome because it's not a number or a fixed objective thing. It's suggestions, and that's where I think it can really work the best. But it's just my those who know the generators even more can say more.
Thank you, Jo. Ian.
Yeah, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna talk specifically about Teachermatic, but just in general, I completely agree, Jo, with your assessment there, because we would never recommend at this stage that we use AI for summative assessment for providing an absolute score. So there should always be a role for a teacher, and that's because the AI is every time the AI looks at the piece of content, it is forming a new opinion. And so you've got many different opinions, and sometimes, as we, even human beings, we make mistakes. But AI is not yet extremely experienced, an extremely experienced ELT teacher that can take on board all of the things that the teacher has learned in their time. And so it is a language model. So it will give multiple opinions, and they're not as informed in educational practice. They're not honing themselves in educational practice in the same way as a teacher would. So we always think there should be remediation by a teacher when it's to do with summative assessment. The only exception to that is algorithm-based AI, where the institution or the publisher can set the rules by which the AI is judging the content, and that is what is generally referred to as manual AI. That is reliable for summative assessment, but then you can audit the whole process with ChatGPT. You can't audit the process, so auditability is another problem with summative assessment. You need to be able to see how a piece of content was marked in order to make sure you're applying the same rules the next time. So yes, well, just to agree with everything you're saying. But yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ian. And actually, kind of connected to what Jo said, you were talking about 1 year ago as a long time ago. And Nik, you made a point in the chat, and you said a year is 10 years in AI time. It's funny to think that now we need to think also about AI time. It's not just the normal time anymore.
It used to be dog years and human years, but now it's dog years, human years, and
Exactly.
AI years.
Indeed, yes, it used to be that, but now we need to shift. Everything is changing. We are in a kind of AI revolution area, right? Okay, great. Now, moving on, talking about assessment, because of course it's such a big and important topic in the language teaching sector. It's clear that there is a need for exam preparation AI tools. Pilar, how is that best addressed? What do you think about this?
Yeah, so Teachermatic has a Cambridge exam prep generator that I absolutely love. And it has allowed me to personalize the content of the activities that I use with my students. And it also changed our exam prep lessons in general, because some students, especially teenagers, maybe some of them don't even want to sit for those exams, and that's okay. Maybe they are doing that just because their parents want them to, and we have to think about that as teachers. We have to find ways to engage them, to show them that this is useful for them. And what I love is that I can generate just the right activities at the right level, and I can personalize the content. So I'm from Argentina, and I work on exam preparation with my students, and we read texts about Messi, for example, which is very fun for them. They love it. And it changed everything. They're not just, again, reading for the sake of reading, or, oh, I have to do this activity. It's like, why don't you take a moment, read this text, and tell me if there's something that you didn't know about Messi, right? And they're like, oh, okay, let's do that. And it's fun. And they were like, okay, so now that we know everything about him, we have this little activity. Let's see if we can pick the right options. And they are getting ready for Cambridge exams, but they see it in a completely different light, and they are engaged, and I love that. And another thing that I really like about being able to generate my own exam prep materials is that, again, I told you about my experience in this bilingual school. I worked with groups of like 35, 40 students, and some of them were sitting for B2 first, and some of them were sitting for C1 advanced. And I needed to have resources for everyone. And, checking was a bit different, a bit difficult. It was like, okay, so you guys go here, you do this. Okay, so everyone pay attention. That was really challenging. But because I can generate different resources around the very same topic, there's always room for discussion. Okay, so what do we know about Messi, for example, right? So let's talk about the things that the content of, for example, the text. I can give them the key because Teachamatic also provides me with that, right? And they can justify their answers and we can go back to the text, but it is still the very same lesson. The texts maybe are a bit different, but it is the same lesson. And even if students are going to sit for different exams or if they have different needs, they all have, they're still part of the group. And I think that changed everything. And that's one of my favorite generators because it allowed me to engage my students and help them get ready for something that's huge, international exams. I mean, it's a very serious matter, and now it's also a fun one.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you, Pilar. Okay, great. Now, Nick, let's talk about the future. Like looking ahead, how do you see AI toolset developing over the next few years to better support language teachers? Also considering what we just said, that AI is developing so quickly, right? So with that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think tool sets are going to become much more multimodal in that they'll be able to produce. I mean, there are individual tools around that can do this already, but being able to produce audio and being able to produce images and video and presentations and things like that. I think that's something that's really nice for teachers and can save time. I know teachers spend ages looking around YouTube to find videos that have got the right language point in or people doing the right things, And if you get to the stage where you can just generate those things that you need for your lesson, then that's great. I mean, I know I've spent loads of time working with AI tools, putting together presentations so that you've got a speaker guiding you through some materials. And still at the moment, it takes me ages to do that. Okay, I can get my AI speaker and I can write the script for them, still have to design all the images, but all of those things are kind of on the cusp, if you like, of being sort of generatable. And I think that, that's really quite exciting. We can make those really interesting and stimulating multimedia materials for our students. And, not just face-to-face students then getting courses online and generating online courses that have that kind of content, I think is really nice as well. That's something else that's kind of in the near future too. So those kinds of things I think can be coming quite soon.
That's great. Thank you. And yeah, it is something that we need to always keep an eye on because it will develop very quickly. Ian.
Yeah, I sort of feel I should say something about this. But yes, it's very exactly the developments that Nick referenced there are very much part of, I think, every AI toolset's roadmap. And just to give some insight, so one of the things Nick mentioned is the creation of online courses. So at the moment, Teachamatic creates worksheets, lesson plans, all sorts of materials that can be used in class and for preparation. But interactives are the next step. So interactives are part and parcel of what, I mean, one of the reasons Avalane bought Teachamatic is because we do interactive content. That's our background. And we're fascinated by bringing Teachamatic together with that capability. Publishers already have access to generative AI-based interactive content creation. So they can create interactive courseware already using AI through another tool set that we create called Author. And so the next step is bringing that together with Teachermatics so that interactives can be delivered directly to teachers to make their classes more engaging, so they can do interactive assignments, so they can do interactive activities at the front of class. All very exciting stuff, but it's all very much part of the future.
Thank you, Jan. Okay, and of course, technology is only part of the story. Jo, how can we make sure teachers have the right knowledge and confidence to make the most of these AI tools?
Yeah, it's AI literacy and building their AI literacy, but as as we kind of mentioned it throughout this session, Ian mentioned that we can just start asking AI what it can do for us. Then we mentioned, I think, I cannot remember who mentioned it, or maybe I just thought of it, but practicing with these tools can be also very, very helpful. And I would say that we just need to be critical and stay critical. One thing that tends to happen when there's new technology or some sort of new tool appearing is that there's this hype and suddenly everyone loves it and believes it, and then they say, oh, but it must be true because ChatGPT told me so, or it must be true because I read it on the internet. And that's something we need to be aware of, that the fact that these things can happen and many things can be generated doesn't actually mean that those are truthful things or useful things. So we just need to stay critical. And one thing, or one way to do that, is just always be on the lookout for what's been generated, how it has been generated, what I think of it, and try to always get some sort of reaction to the generated piece of material or picture or video. And with that, we can somehow create this, so something that is scary, that if we believe it so much, then we're just going to accept whatever comes out of it. If we try to critique it and build a bit of a distance between the generated result and us, then we can stay a little bit detached, and I think that's safe.
Definitely. And is indeed also what Nik was saying in the chat. And I can see that some people agree with it, and with you, Joanna, as well. Because the old expression that he mentioned, old ants don't embrace it. Just try to keep that distance and always make sure that you have the critic eye on always. So thank you. But just in case you want to explore more about Teachermatic Language Teaching Edition, I'm just dropping in the chat the link to a landing page where you can find all information. I saw someone earlier talking about free tools. There is a free version available for Teachermatic, so teachers can go in, create their account and explore it and see what you can do with it. So feel free to do it. Share any feedback if you want to get in touch with us. We will appreciate that. And then in case you want to sign up for the next session in this webinar series that is going to be focused on the Cambridge style exam prep generator that Pilar mentioned earlier, I'll just drop the link in the chat. So this session is going to be on Thursday, the 22nd of January, with Jo, who's going to demo this generator, and then you can really see in practice what you can do with Teachermatic and this specific generator. And feel free to come along, sign up using the registration link. So now a big thank you to everyone for joining us today. Thank you for all the panelists. It was great to have you here. You share very useful insights on AI in language education. And hope to see you all very soon. And thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thanks.
joining.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.